If you could peer into the fabric of the universe, would you? Even if that knowledge might scorch the world. Such is the plight of humanity, a species driven by an insatiable curiosity, forever pushing the boundaries of understanding. But with each breakthrough, a new challenge arises: the question of consequence. This dual-edged nature of scientific advancement has woven itself into the DNA of human civilization. It is a paradox that stands at the heart of every new discovery we make. And there is perhaps no single person more defined by this paradox than J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Born in 1904 in the bustling city of New York, J. Robert Oppenheimer was anything but an ordinary child. He was the son of Julius Oppenheimer, a wealthy textile importer. Even from his tender years, Oppenheimer's intensity and curiosity set him apart, delivering his first scientific paper at the age of 12. After high school, Oppenheimer gained admission to Harvard University. It was here that his brilliant mind truly began to shine. Graduating in just 3 years, he swiftly shifted his focus to physics, fascinated by the intricacies of the physical universe. His thirst for knowledge was insatiable, so much so that he ventured across the Atlantic to the centers of theoretical physics, first the University of Cambridge and then the University of Göttingen, where he earned his PhD. He became the protege of Max Born, a legendary figure in quantum mechanics. To those who knew him, Oppenheimer was a study in contrasts. His peers at Göttingen found him brilliant, but also insufferable. His arrogance caused rifts between him and his fellow classmates, to the point where they approached Max Born and threatened to boycott his classes if Born couldn't get Oppenheimer under control. Moreover, Oppenheimer was also a man of political ideals, leaning towards left-wing views. He began to frequent communist circles, even contributing money to their cause, which in the America of the 1930s was more than enough to raise some flags. After completing his education in Germany, Oppenheimer returned to the United States, embarking on a career as a theoretical physicist. His brilliance would soon be called upon for a project that would change the world forever. As the 1940s dawned, a storm was brewing on the global stage, one that would engulf nations and reshape history. World War II was underway, and amid the chaos, a race was secretly unfolding, the pursuit of a weapon that would determine the victor and the vanquished. Among the warring nations, Germany and the Soviet Union were rumored to be inching towards a breakthrough in nuclear technology. The stakes were high, and the threat of an atomic weapon in the hands of enemy forces spurred America into action. The US, under the leadership of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, greenlit a concerted effort to harness the power of nuclear fission and channel it into a destructive force unlike anything mankind had ever witnessed. Codename: the Manhattan Project. The challenge was monumental. The task was to decipher the intricacies of atomic physics and apply it to warfare, all while maintaining absolute secrecy. Time was of the essence, the enemy was at the gate, and the race to build the atomic bomb was truly on. With the pressure mounting, the US was on the hunt for someone who could spearhead this monumental endeavor. The US was not short on brilliant minds, but this undertaking required a unique blend of scientific brilliance, management prowess, and resilience. This leader was none other than J. Robert Oppenheimer. With Oppenheimer at the helm, the team began to work on unlocking the destructive power hidden within the nucleus of an atom. At its core, an atomic bomb operates on the principle of nuclear fission. When a neutron strikes the nucleus of a heavy atom, such as uranium-235 or plutonium-239, It splits the nucleus into two smaller atoms and releases a tremendous amount of energy in the process. Moreover, additional neutrons are also released, which can then trigger a chain reaction of nuclear fissions, leading to an explosive release of energy. In theory, this sounds straightforward, but in practice, it was a daunting task. The team faced numerous challenges. One of the most significant hurdles was obtaining enough fissile material. Both uranium-235 and plutonium-239 were extremely rare and difficult to isolate from their more common isotopes. Another hurdle was devising a mechanism to initiate the nuclear chain reaction at precisely the right moment. Too early, and the bomb would fizzle. Too late, and the destructive force would be less than optimal. Oppenheimer and his team, working day and night, surmounted these challenges one by one. It was the pre-dawn hours of July 16, 1945, and after many months of tireless work and tenacious problem-solving, the Manhattan Project team was finally ready to test their creation. Codenamed Trinity, the first ever atomic bomb test was carried out in the desolate Jornada del Muerto desert of New Mexico. The atmosphere at the Trinity site was electric with a potent mixture of apprehension and anticipation. Each tick of the countdown clock echoed in the hearts of Oppenheimer and his team as they held their collective breath, waiting for the world to change forever.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now.
The flash was later calculated to be brighter than 1,000 suns. Miles away, a young girl, blind from birth, saw the flash.
Unleashing a force equal to 20,000 tons of TNT, it sent a searing flash of light tearing across the desert, a newborn sun igniting the early morning darkness. The light was immediately followed by a shockwave that shattered windows 120 miles away, the Earth itself trembling in the face of mankind's formidable creation. The team of the Manhattan Project, witnessing the awesome power of their creation, shared a profound reaction. The triumph of scientific achievement was suddenly and chillingly overshadowed by the stark reality of the awesome and yet horrible weapon they had birthed into the world.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
To allay suspicions and maintain secrecy, the US government quickly put out a cover story, claiming that the blast was due to the accidental explosion of a large ammunition storage. Few outside the project had any idea of the destructive force and gargantuan power that now lay in mankind's hands. The United States, now armed with a weapon of unimaginable power, was standing at a moral crossroads: prolong the war with conventional methods and continue to sacrifice countless lives on both sides, or drop the atomic bomb, a harbinger of death on an unprecedented scale, to end the bloodshed in one swift stroke, in a move that would define his presidency and indeed the trajectory of human history. President Truman gave the order: the atomic bomb would be used. For the fateful mission that would end World War II, two bombs were chosen. The first was Little Boy, a uranium-based weapon with a yield roughly equal to 15,000 tons of TNT. And the second was Fat Man, a plutonium-based bomb that packed an explosive force of 21,000 tons of TNT. All the while, the mission was cloaked in deep secrecy. Crew members of the Enola Gay and Boxcar, the planes tasked with this harrowing mission, knew only that they were delivering a highly potent payload, the specifics of which were kept from them. When dawn broke on August 6, 1945, the bustling city of Hiroshima had no idea of the doom that was about to descend from the skies. As the clock struck 8:15 a.m., Little Boy detonated above the city, carving out a 5-square-mile radius of absolute devastation. The initial flash blinded the sky, its heat transforming the cityscape into a tableau of destruction. Buildings were flattened, instantly incinerated by the extreme temperatures that dwarfed those at the heart of the sun. The sheer power of the explosion generated winds faster than the most violent hurricanes, indiscriminately hurling debris and people alike. A mere 3 days later, the city of Nagasaki met the same fate. Fat Man descended from the heavens, marking another page in this tragic chapter of history. The immediate death toll: 226,000 lives extinguished in an instant, most of them civilians. But the nightmare was far from over for the survivors. In the wake of the explosions, a new and insidious killer emerged: radiation sickness. Exposure to the invisible atomic fallout damaged cells and DNA. For those affected, this could mean nausea, weakness, hair loss, severe burns, and in many cases, a slow and painful death.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe. The force from which the sun draws its power has been loosed against those who brought war to the Far East. We are now prepared to destroy more rapidly and completely every productive enterprise the Japanese have in any city. We shall destroy their docks, their factories, and their communications. Let there be no mistake. We shall completely destroy Japan's power to make war.
The massive loss of life and devastation brought about by the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki triggered an abrupt end to World War II. Japan, facing the unimaginable power of nuclear weaponry, surrendered unconditionally on August 15, 1945. While the world breathed a collective sigh of relief, one man was grappling with the moral cost of this new era. Robert Oppenheimer, a man of science who had just witnessed his theoretical work materialize into a devastating reality, was initially swept in the tidal wave of victory. His jubilation, once fueled by the ending of the war and scientific achievement, turned to despair as the human toll of his creation became evident. The theoretical physicist turned father of the atomic bomb was now wrestling with his conscience, haunted by the spectre of his own creation. As the smoke cleared over the ruins of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, a new conundrum presented itself to the world. The atomic genie was out of the bottle, and the question was no longer about the possibility of harnessing atomic power, but rather the prudent use of this awe-inspiring and destructive force. The aftermath of World War II, a new Cold War began to take shape. The United States and the Soviet Union, formerly allied against the Axis powers, were now locked in an ideological and geopolitical conflict. The existence of atomic weaponry added a chilling new dimension to this rivalry. President Truman, perceiving the threat posed by the Soviets, contemplated the use of atomic weapons as a deterrent. Truman believed in maintaining America's nuclear superiority to ensure national security. However, Oppenheimer, now haunted by the devastation of Japan, vehemently disagreed with this stance. His guilt and regret began to define his relations with the government. In particular, his relationship with President Harry S. Truman became strained. Oppenheimer voiced his remorse over the bombings to Truman, asserting that physicists have known sin, and this is a knowledge they cannot lose. He also stated his fears that the blood of the now dead Japanese civilians was on his hands. Truman didn't take kindly to Oppenheimer's introspective guilt, and this interaction marked the beginning of a bitter fallout between them. Oppenheimer lobbied for international control of nuclear technology and proposed the creation of an atomic energy authority that would regulate not only the weapons but also the materials used in their manufacture. He envisioned a world where atomic power could be harnessed for the betterment of humanity rather than its destruction. The Manhattan Project had opened Pandora's box, and Oppenheimer worried about who could control this power and to what ends it could be used. Secretary of Commerce Henry Wallace, the former vice president, wrote in his diary, "I never saw a man in such an extremely nervous state as Oppenheimer. He seemed to feel that the destruction of the entire human race was imminent." As the Cold War intensified, so too did the scrutiny of Oppenheimer's past. His early affiliations with the Communist Party, despite his subsequent renunciation, made him a target of suspicion within the Atomic Committee and the government. His dissenting voice against the development of the hydrogen bomb, a weapon far more powerful than the atomic bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, only further isolated him. This opposition was not based on a fear of technical challenges, but rather a moral repugnance to the unprecedented scale of destruction that such a weapon would bring. Oppenheimer's hope that the announcement of the Soviet Union's successful atomic bomb test in 1949 would halt the nuclear arms race was in vain. Instead of reconsideration, the world found itself caught in a spiraling circle of escalating, destructive power. The relentless march of scientific advancement would not be halted. The first thermonuclear bomb, or H-bomb, was detonated by the United States in 1952. It had a power equivalent to 10.4 million tons of TNT, nearly 500 times that of the bomb dropped on Nagasaki. Oppenheimer's stance, far from influencing the decision-makers, resulted in his further ostracization. In a tragic twist of fate, the father of the atomic bomb was disregarded, discredited, and ultimately humiliated, even as his fears for the future began to take form. Following his public denouncement, Oppenheimer retreated from the atomic world he had once so passionately led. This silenced one of the most authoritative voices against the reckless pursuit of ever greater destructive power. As he withdrew, the world plunged further into an unrestrained nuclear arms race. The Soviet Union would detonate its first thermonuclear bomb, RDS-37, in 1955. And just 6 years later, in 1961, the world would witness the detonation of the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created, the Tsar Bomba. The Tsar Bomba, with a yield of 50 megatons of TNT, was over 3,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and 10 times more powerful than all of the ordnance detonated in World War II combined. The mushroom cloud was 25 miles wide at its base and 60 miles wide at its top. At 40 miles high, it penetrated the stratosphere. If the Tsar bomber were to be dropped on a major city like New York, it would cause an estimated 7.7 million deaths and 4.1 million injuries, flattening everything in a 35-mile radius. By the end of the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union had amassed an estimated 70,000 nuclear weapons between them. If combined, these weapons could potentially kill every person on Earth several times over. All this while the man who had pioneered this terrifying era of warfare lived out the rest of his days in relative obscurity, haunted by the knowledge of what he had unleashed upon the world. In 1965, Oppenheimer began to exhibit symptoms of what was later diagnosed as throat cancer. It's a cruel twist of fate for the man who brought forth the atomic age. His life was being claimed by one of the most well-known side effects of radiation exposure. As he faced his mortality, one can only imagine the thoughts that crossed his mind. His earlier scientific achievements had been groundbreaking in their own right, even before the shadow of the atomic bomb loomed over his legacy. The Born-Oppenheimer approximation is a cornerstone of quantum chemistry, paving the way for the study of molecular wave functions. His early work on the theory of electrons and positrons set the stage for the development of quantum field theory, and his contributions to the theory of neutron stars and black holes revolutionized our understanding of the universe. These were the discoveries that could have defined him had the course of history been different. He could have been remembered as a creator, a builder of knowledge, a man who pushed the boundaries of our understanding of the universe. Yet, his path was one that led to destruction. Robert Oppenheimer died on February 18, 1967, leaving behind a world forever changed by his work, haunted by his creation. His legacy is one that is filled with contradiction. A brilliant mind, a pioneer of destruction, a man both celebrated and vilified. For all the darkness that clouded his final years, Oppenheimer's story is not one of unmitigated tragedy. It is, rather, a testament to the dual nature of our species' scientific endeavors. And perhaps that is the true, enduring legacy of Robert Oppenheimer, a man of vast intellect, whose life became a stark symbol of our age, an age where mankind's reach, for better or worse, has finally grasped the raw power of the universe itself. Where we go from here yet remains to be seen.